and this hangout on air is live. So I'm immediately going to take a photo of this and tell everybody to come to this amazing show. Woo!
You're so official.
Yeah, turn that off. There you go. I'm trying, I try to prepare for these things to make it seem as if I know what I'm doing. Sure. It's debatable.
Well, doesn't really like you trying to be prepared. True. So I usually just accept not doing that at all.
Very accurate. Oh, I have all this text on my clipboard. Delete, 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 delete.
That was a nice noise. What was that?
That was my custom Twitter sound.
Oh.
I didn't like the built-in Twitter sound, so I found some sounds of birds chirping, and I selected the one that I liked.
Yeah, no, I love it.
All right, and share that. Which also reminds me that I want to turn off the sounds on my phone.
Also probably a good idea.
Yes, generally speaking.
I forget
but first,
most people have sounds on their phones, and that a lot of people use the clicking keyboard. I can't
stand the clicking keyboard.
I cannot stand that at all.
No.
Like a negative ASMR thing for me. I can't handle it.
ASMR. But I do have sounds because I like to customize the sounds for things, including my theme song. Does it work? Is it going to work? No. Where's it? No. Stop it. Try that again.
There you go.
Ah. There we go. My theme song's out of the way, and thus begins another chaotic PaulTalks PaulCast. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Paul Roth, based out of LA, and this week I am joined by my guest and friend,
Alexandria Taylor, and a little Elvis here.
Oh, Elvis is there.
Yep, we have the first pup appearance of the day. But you can also call me Allie. That's fine. It's a lot of words to use, so that's fine.
Yes, I like to call you Allie. It's great.
Yeah, I usually most people who call me by my full name, I either think are using it within a professional context or I'm in trouble. So Allie is just fine. Yeah,
I mean, whenever I'm talking about you with other YouTubers, I generally refer to you as Allie Taylor. But I also know that on everything official that you have, like your Twitter bio, your YouTube channel, it always says Alexandria Taylor. So whenever I'm writing out your name, I write out your full name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, I prefer to have a lot of names. It's fine.
What are your other, well, actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was 23 of me. From where did that come?
Okay, I'm glad that you asked because I have a lot of feelings about this. I fit my lower third very well. So it has nothing to do with that genetic testing place. I'm not bitter about them at all, but they're coming for my brand. And so here's the thing. I was born on the 23rd, but I had this revelation when I was about 12 that 5/23/1994, they all add up to 23. So 5, if you break it up.
2, 3, 9. Oh, wow.
And then if you add up 1, 9, 9, and 4, it's 23. So the number follows me everywhere. And then that movie with Jim Carrey came out about 23. Listen, the number follows me everywhere. I've decided to accept it, and it's become a part of my brand. It's fine. But then that genetic testing place came out, and it confuses everyone because now they think that I do genetic testing. I do not. I'm not going to charge $99 for interacting with me, though I wouldn't mind $99, but that is why.
I mean, that's what Patreons are for. Get people to.
That's true. Yeah.
And pledge you $99.
That's true. Yeah, but that's why the number follows me everywhere.
That's cool. I never knew. I figured you probably have like a video about it on your channel somewhere or something, but I never. No. All right. Well, this is exclusive. This is exclusive information about Allie Taylor.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I haven't felt like it justified a video in and of itself. No, years ago, probably. But anyway, yeah, that's why. But it's exclusive content. Yes.
Awesome. And then let me get right into, why did you get onto YouTube? Why are you on this YouTube thing?
That's a great question. I started making videos my senior year of high school, so I was 17. And I didn't do it on my own accord. I was in a collab channel with 4 other friends who were in my journalism class at that time. And it was more so just we were bored and it was the end of senior year kind of project.
It's like 5 awesome friends.
We were called 5 creepy girls. So, yeah. So we go back to the original collab channels. And I loved making content, but I had originally been a blogger for most of my adolescent life. And then I realized that video making was much more my style. But during high school, I was at home, #dying, in the most elegant fashion of being in hospitals most of the time. So I didn't really have the ability to be able to sit down, make videos, edit them, upload them, and all of that fashion. So blogging was a much more efficient fashion for me. Once I was in more of a remission state, videos were a much more effective way of storytelling for me.
Do you find it easier now to sit down and put out a video or put together a blog post?
I would say videos are much more effective for me. I think that it communicates my voice much more, which I do think is ironic because I went into college with the idea of being an English major. Like, I'm going to be a writer. Like, this is going to be my thing. And no, I think that it helped me craft a voice for public speaking and communicating with others. But the idea of sitting down and just writing longer pieces is not the same enjoyment for me as communicating with others in video fashion.
It's really interesting. I mean, I also had a blog for a little while. It's not even worth looking at before I got into YouTube, but I mean, I think I had a similar voice, but mostly it's just that I was younger and not as socially aware of concepts back then, which is what I'm not looking at. But the thing that I always found kind of inhibiting was how to write my blogs in a way that conveyed like all of the contextual things that are about the way I communicate with people. And then when I started doing YouTube and I realized I can actually do this YouTube video and put in the pauses the way I always pause and put in the stressors that I always put in,
Right.
and people can actually see that, it became a much more enjoyable experience for me to communicate the ideas that I wanted to get out there.
Absolutely. I think most of the written ways that we communicate those emotions are through like ellipses or spaces in those content. And I think that there's this almost like this social idea that that's not okay. Like there's like memes against using ellipses and those kinds of things. So I think being able to create videos where you can just communicate your voice, even if it's not like a literal voice, but just the way that you communicate ideas is a much more effective way for most people, I would say. Integrates audio, visual components, which is a much more effective way for absorbing content than just reading a block on a screen.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. It's why I've gotten so addicted to YouTube myself.
Yeah.
You mentioned your hospitalization. There's some of my viewers might not know what your medical history is. Not that it's like significantly important, but it is something that you, I think, informs some of the stuff you do.
Right, absolutely. So I am chronically ill, which is fun. Fun is an interesting word for that.
It is not fun.
I'll stick with interesting, I guess. And I've been so since I was 14. And I contracted both of the diseases that I have during my freshman year of high school, which is an amazing time for lots of changes to happen. I don't know that having illnesses compounded onto that is a necessary thing to happen when you're worried about BO and hormones and grades and all of those kinds of things that are part of the the kind of adolescent experience, but alas, it happened.
Yeah, you did puberty at a very difficult level.
Yeah, it was like 0 to 100, like immediately. But alas, so I got bit by a tick and got chronic Lyme disease, and then I have endometriosis, which is a genetic hormone kind of disease as well, and they're both in the same bits of my body at the same time. So I went from being a 3-sport athlete to being wheelchair bound in about 6 months.
That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously it has informed a lot of things that you've done YouTube related. One of the big things that I learned about you early on was that you were an advocate for invisible illnesses, and that obviously has led you down a path towards creating the disabilities on YouTube. I got my pin. Disabilities on YouTube panels at VidCon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think advocating for all sorts of disabilities and just owning the term disabilities is something that I've come to grow over the past 7-8 years, because I don't think that at first I wanted to consider myself disabled. I didn't realize at the time that meant so much about the kind of internalized ideas of ableism that I had in my mind. I just assumed that this was a phase of being sick and that I would go back to being normal. And I remember so many times saying normal as if I considered able bodies to be normal, as if throughout the course of the human body, we don't go from, being able-bodied to being disabled multiple times throughout one's life, if not at least once. And so it was a very empowering journey, I think, and also introspective journey to understand my identity, not only during that time, which is such a crucial time to understand your identity, but also understanding one's body in that way as well.
Has it, I don't know, given you opportunities to speak out about disability outside of YouTube?
It has at my universities in some regards, but I do think that there is still some hesitancy for me to not my disabilities within the context of work or school, just because of the perceptions that they have. So I think that especially when it comes to invisible disabilities, there's a lot of perceptions of people like faking it, whether it is to get out of work or to get out of like assignments in school. So I definitely felt some pressure to kind of perform as an able-bodied person as much as I could, just so that my like fellow peers and my teachers or my like bosses didn't see me as anything different, which I don't necessarily know that I think was the right decision, but it was a decision that I made to keep my success the way that I needed it to, kind of thing.
I mean, that makes sense. There's many of my other friends who are on disability YouTube, I guess. YouTube disabled. Anyway, they will talk about the dichotomy of having to live with particularly more invisible illnesses where, yes, you want to seem like you are acting at the same level as all of your peers, and so you try to hide your disability, but then there are going to be times when you just cannot. And on those occasions, people will say, well, you were fine yesterday or what have you, so how can this be an accurate, a real disability? It's a tough push and pull.
Yeah, I think the most dichotomous thing that I experience is that if you Google my name, one of the quickest things that will pop up is the fact that disability is attached to my identity. But I have to say that I'm not disabled for the most part, because I'm not filling it out for like school purposes, for financial aid purposes, for learning accommodation purposes. When I'm filling out job applications, I have to say that I'm not disabled so that I can say I can lift 40 pounds, stand on my feet for so and so amount of hours. And those are true. So I have to not check those boxes so that I'm not perceived in a certain way, even though I could wake up tomorrow and not be able to lift those things or not be able to have the standard accommodations that most students have. So it is a very interesting perception of trying to trust a body that doesn't really know how to trust itself, kind of thing.
That is, yeah, that's
Which I think applies for not only like disabilities physically, but I think mental health as well.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because it's only been in the last year or so that I've realized that even though I have been open with the fact that I have depression and some social anxiety, though that's not diagnosed, even though I've been open with about that fact for years, it's only been probably this last year that I realized, oh wait, that's actually a disability too.
Mm-hmm.
But I just never for me, I don't want to take advantage of the various frameworks set up for people with disability that in a way that could potentially take away some of the accessibility for other people by taking it for myself.
Sure.
Like for example, I could never imagine taking a handicapped placard for my vehicle because I can walk fine long distances. So even though I have a disability of mental illness,
right.
I don't want to take advantage of that when it could be used by somebody who really uses it.
Right. Absolutely. I think having the awareness of taking space and making space is an important component for all aspects of someone's identity. But I do think that there is something for the identity to recognize that you can have those labels. Because I do think that there is something about our society that stigmatizes attaching those labels to oneself. So whether you identify as having mental health issues or you identify as being mentally ill, like whatever the terms are that you identify, if you claim those for yourself, that's something that's empowering there for you, or you can make it empowering, I guess.
I agree. Once I started realizing that my depression is a form of disability,
Mm-hmm.
I became much more willing to accept that there are things that I just can't do, and rather than beat myself up about it, which for someone in my mental condition is really useful, because if I start beating myself up about things, I just get into a cycle where it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was most effective for me in understanding how depression, as one of the examples, works was seeing the MRI scans of the brains and seeing that like the brain functions differently with mental health conditions such as like depression, ADHD, whatever it may be, in those different kinds of conditions. And so I remember seeing it, I think in like my first semester of college or something, and being able to truly recognize that folks who have these kinds of conditions or disabilities, their brains operate differently. And so it's not just a title that they give themselves in the way that society usually makes it seem like. It's something that is physically different, and so it should be treated with that kind of severity and realness in our society as well.
That is just that's so eloquent. I want to have you as my advocate for everything.
I mean, today is a more eloquent day. I would say get me, because it's the morning time, so I'm more awake and alert. Get me to like 10 o'clock and I'll be like woozy and tired and stuff. So it just depends on the time of day. Or like 2 o'clock, which is one of the circadian rhythm. If you have like a standard circadian rhythm time, 2 o'clock is usually when most people get tired. So that's usually when my body's like, hey, nap time, even though I don't have a life where I can just take naps at 2 o'clock. So
I definitely feel that 2 o'clock circadian rhythm drop in my energy every day. That's when I go for my green tea. So in your experience on YouTube, post hospitalization and exploring this as a way of communicating better, have you had disability advocacy in your topics from the start, or did you just get there eventually?
I think that it was always something that I was open with discussing, because of the fact that when I was blogging, that was the only thing that I was really talking about, because I didn't know anybody else that had the diseases that I had. And so I was using it just as a platform to be like, I'm reaching out into the void. Does anybody else, like, please, someone have these experiences as well? So when I tried to transition to this medium, I think that it wasn't something that I was definitely trying to hide. I just think that in the beginning, as with anybody who was first starting out with YouTube, I was still just trying to find my voice. And I think that because I was trying to at first kind of mimic the creators that I was watching to try to help me gain my own voice, they weren't talking about ability in their content. So I don't think that it was one of the first foremost things that was coming up when I was trying to create video ideas. So it wasn't until I started to leave behind their ideas and start coming into my own voice that I realized that that was a talking point that was really important for me and needed to be one of the first and foremost components of my channel.
That's excellent. I mean, it's been on part of your channel pretty much for the entire time that I've known of you. And it's been great. We are joined in the chat by Rebel Wheels NYC, which is a great username. Hi, Rebel Wheels.
Yay! There's people here.
There are. We actually have 6 viewers listed, but people are being quiet. That's okay. You can be quiet. But if you have any questions, do feel free to join us in the YouTube page chat and send us over the questions. The other part of your YouTube channel that I've known since I've known you has been a very strong push for both feminism and also supporting other women on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then there's after, I think, was it 2 years ago, was the development of the FemTube concept. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in every aspect of my life, I'm not quiet by any means. And I'm starting to realize that more as a positive thing. Most of my teachers kind of placated me growing up, being like, "That's a good thing, but just can you a little bit?" Like trying to just like get class done. And I would always be like, "But no, like I've got feelings that I need to express." And they were like, "That's great, but this is a classroom environment, not just like a one-on-one thing." So when I ended up getting into a space where it was a one-on-one thing and I felt like I was directly talking to the void, the people that were there, one of the things that came up was I didn't feel like that I got the support that I needed in respecting other folks of the same gender as me, but also folks of different genders of me, or no genders of all. So that was something that I wanted to discuss and talk about, because I think that I try to craft my I do try to craft my channel as if a younger me is watching these things. And I mean, one of the things that I think Megan Todd just has in her bio that I relate to so much is a good heart and a bad mouth, because so I try to have a lot of feelings but condense it into decent like PG language. Sometimes it doesn't always happen, but I wanted to talk about the fact that the way that I was raised in our society and also in my communities, respecting other folks was not a part of it. And that ended up kind of transitioning into FemTube after the Women on YouTube panel of 2015. And it was a name came up by Akila Hughes. So I can't take credit for the name. What I can take credit for is the fact that every month I host the Twitter chat for empowering content creators that are female identified or of underrepresented minorities.
That's so excellent. That's so great.
Yeah. So I think that even though it says FemTube, one of the facts of the mission statement for me personally is that you don't have to be female identified or identify as a woman to be within this community. As long as you feel safe and you identify with the mission statement of having more inclusive YouTube communities and representing folks that are usually underrepresented, not only online, but outside of the online spaces as well, that to me makes you a member of FemTube or an ally of FemTube, whatever you choose to participate as.
I mean, I definitely see myself as an ally. It's really hard being as John Scalzi would say, playing at the easiest level as I do, being a light-skinned, cis, hetero, male, English-speaking, able-bodied, mostly, in the United States, I'm playing at one of the easiest levels. And so it's so easy for me to accidentally take over a space without even realizing them doing it. So I try very hard to like support Femtube by retweeting stuff, by like telling other people about it, to tell them to get into it. But try not to jump into the conversation too much myself. Just listen, learn, uplift, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I think that it's hard, and that's still something that I am trying to learn as I get older, and because of the fact that I am one of those people who doesn't like pauses in between questions. So like when a teacher, an educator, or a public speaker poses a question, that space in between them posing that question and someone answering, me like get the gross tingles and the like, ooh, don't like that awkward pause. And so I'm usually one of those people that initially just responds just to start the dialogue. I've had to back away from that, and I think college is one of those spaces that helped me learn that to be the first one to speak. And so that idea of taking space, of making space, and having those be integrated. So you can think a thought, you can write it down, and that's what I usually do, is I usually just write it down so I can get that thought out, and then I can focus on what other people are communicating. And that way I'm not just consistently thinking about what's going on in my head. And that's one of the ways of being an active participant for me, is so that I can allow other folks who don't usually participate. And since I'm usually one of those people that immediately talks or talks a lot, I can try to make space in that way.
That's really good. I will point out that every now and then, I think your microphone cuts out and I miss a word or two, or no. I'm developing a new disability. One of the two.
No. Okay. Yeah, I will try to gently coax it into work.
I mean, you definitely hear 95% of what you're saying, but just every now and then, I'll miss like a couple words.
Okay. That's good information to know. I like having that feedback.
Have you been informed, or did you know about the YouTube Accessibility Summit that's happening in LA in like a couple weeks?
I did, yes. YouTube and Google reached out to me about a month ago to get some content creators for that summit. So that was really nice. And I'm really looking forward to them participating in that. I think that it should be a great space. I'm looking forward to, hopefully they do some sort of like live stream recording thing for that.
I'm gonna try to remember to take my my little handheld recorder that I take to VidCon every year. Awesome. I don't know if I'll be allowed to, but if I'm allowed to, I'm going to try to video it all and put it up online. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I have the emails of the folks that emailed me about that summit. I will see about them trying to do a recording of that and having that captioned and posted, because I think the most accessible way to do a summit would be to have as many folks participate in that content as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that I brought up with my with Annie Elaney, which is that distance itself is an accessibility problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is something, and that was one of the most frustrating things that when they reached out to me, is they were like, what content creators do you know within the LA area? And I was like, well, I have a list. I know folks, but I mean, you have to also consider the fact that there are a lot of great content creators in LA, but there's also a lot of amazing content creators within the US and outside, that if you want to have greater conversations that include more experiences, you're going to have to be able to like fly these people in, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how it's happening, but Ricky is coming, so that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I think JD is coming, and a couple other people are coming who are not in the LA area. I'm not sure how much of that is being provided for by YouTube.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of folks from the panels from
yes, from your panels.
Yeah, so I was just like, hey, what's up? Yeah, that made me, I was very happy to see that, you know, that kind of, even if it wasn't Well, that's actually not true. The reason that Google and YouTube directly contacted me about this accessibility summit was because of the panels at VidCon. So they knew about these creators from that space. So I do think that con space had outreaching effects in that way. So it makes me really happy to see that the creators that were on those panels and on those workshops are now being able to do more things.
That's very exciting. Can you talk about how VidCon themselves initially reached out to you about the disabilities on YouTube panels?
Are
you allowed to?
No, I absolutely can. I would just say that I was the one that did it. VidCon did not reach out to me. I in all ways, and I was definitely well, because I originally posted the video like 3 days or something after we got back from VidCon 2015, just because after you come back from a convention such as that, you're completely full of brain crack, right? So I was just like, yes, I'm going to make this happen. It's going to be a great thing. And then I posted it and I was like, well, they're never going to see this though, is the thing. Whatever. I'm still going to do it. And then they did. Laura saw it and Michael around, like The Office in Missoula saw it within an hour of it being posted. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do I do now? And so I knew right after they watched it, they were going to add it to their list. But because they had literally just gotten back from VidCon, they were no means to start planning, which is fine. I knew that. So I waited a few months and I put it in my calendar. And when the 2 or 3 months passed, I emailed them and I was like, hey, it's me. Do you remember this thing that I posted about? And Laura was like, yep, we remember. When we start planning, we'll let you know. And I was like, okay. The absolute sincerity that like nothing was going to come out of this, but I got a response from Laura. So I was like, cool, great. Then January comes around of this year and I have a conference call with Laura and Travis, and I realized that they're actually interested in this. And I was like, oh, so you weren't just placating me. You actually care.
Hey, I don't know if this actually contributed at all to this, but I know that after you made your video, lots of us kind of like when we got the VidCon creator survey after VidCon, a lot of us would write in things like, what would you like to see next year? I would like to see Allie Taylor's disabilities panel, please.
Well, yeah, that definitely helps. And then I realized that they didn't just want one. After kind of brainstorming what we wanted, there were 2 panels. There was a panel for community and there was a creator workshop. And I was like, got off the call and I was like, okay, so this is actually happening. Awesome, but also weird because I've been going to this for years and now I'm going to be on the backstage of it. What? Me? What? Why?
We're also joined in the chat by Nikki, who says that Nikki also did that. She also wrote in and said, hey, VidCon, make Allie Taylor's panels happen.
I love that. That's amazing. That makes me really happy. I think the weirdest and the most amazing thing I think about my whole experience planning them was how much free reign that they gave me in curating the list of creators that I wanted. They gave feedback of some on their end that they wanted, but the content, the creators, how the structure of them, both the panel and the workshop went, that was all on my end. They did not try to come in with their ideas and create them. And I thought that it was weird at the time because I was like, you're not gonna put your big hand and try to like muddle all this Play-Doh up. But looking back on it, I'm really thankful that they trust the people who come in with these prepared plans and just let them go, which is really nice.
It is really great. We're also joined in the chat by Cody, who immediately says, Mom!
Oh my God. Yeah, that sounds about right, honestly.
I think that it is great that VidCon trusts the panel creators and moderators to do what they have come up with in the best possible way.
Absolutely.
when there's someone who is as organized and thoughtful about it as you, it works out great. Or like Rowan or Ashley Mardell, it works out great. There are some panels at VidCon where I think that the organizers don't have the best idea of what they're doing.
I agree.
But so it's a mixed bag. But in your case, and for the disabilities on YouTube panels and workshops, fantastic, just fantastic.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of disparity there because the creators that, while I do think that Ashley and Rowan, they have a very stable and a strong and fan base and viewership base, the ones that I think that we're both thinking about as the like negative panels were created by much larger content creators.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
So I do think that there's this idea that with a lower kind of viewership base, you have much more to prove kind of thing. So you have to come into it with so much more in order to be respected. Whereas the ones that are kind of thrown together by larger content creators, they don't really care as long as they know that the people are going to be there. And for most people, that's not the case. But there's been like 2 or 3 in the past few years that I've gone to that I'm like, you literally just rolled out of bed. You're not like here for this. Why am I here? Like, I gotta go kind of thing.
Yeah, fortunately, with the advent of the creator track at VidCon, I didn't run into too many of those things because I was able to actually pick and choose like the topics that I wanted to get into. Yeah. But that I walked past panel rooms that were like that for sure. I walked past panel rooms where the 1 or 2, very few creators on that panel would just like encourage yelling, and that seemed to be like the most important part to them.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. And I'm not a fan of yelling in general, but especially in that space. Like the ACC does not need any more yelling.
No, it does not.
Oh my goodness.
We're also joined the chat. Oh, this is great. We're joined in the chat by Rachel and Pierce, the Junie Bird, who says, I want to say something, but this conversation is so great, I don't want to distract from it with my random questions. Ask us questions. Ask us questions. It's great.
So, fun story about Rachel. I met her when she came into Portland. Oh, God, Rachel, what was that, like a month ago? We have the same phone case. And I know that seems silly, but this phone case is not that common. I've only met like 2 other people that have it, and Rachel's one of them, and she has a bigger phone. But she lived a life that I cannot imagine because it's very cool to me, and she knows so much. And honestly,
I mean, she's a world touring rock star singer, so everybody's gonna know her name in a minute.
Fair, yes, yeah, absolutely. But yeah. Please don't feel afraid to ask questions. I'm always interested in those.
Likewise. I mean, I have these live shows just so I can have a good, fun conversation with someone that I respect and care about on YouTube. Sure. But the people who are participating in the chat, they can oftentimes take the conversations in like really fascinating directions. So I definitely encourage that.
Yeah.
We are also joined by my friend Sabrina Stacacino, who says, in regards to my comments about the con panels, that's the case with so many cons, Paul. I've been to some anime cons where every panel had a 50-50 chance of being decent.
Wow. And you have to pay for that.
Yeah. It's and you can't get a refund because one of the panels that you went to sucked, which is a shame.
Honestly, I would try. Like, I've been to 3 panels. This sucks. Can I get my money back? But I have no idea about anime cons because I've never been to one, but I would say that those are probably one of the more expensive ones, I would imagine. Maybe? So
I'm sure that it ranges because I've been to Comic Cons, and some of the Comic Cons are very cheap. Like I went to the Long Beach Comic Con and it cost me less than $50. I've been, and then the San Diego Comic Con is hundreds of dollars.
Well, yes. Yeah. Interesting. That makes me frustrated with the committees that they have, that they're not quality checking these things. Whatever.
I mean, I've been frustrated at VidCon too. When I've attended VidCon and I've been to some panels, and some of the panels were just like you say, the people didn't prepare for the panel at all. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say this one because it was a couple of years ago, but there was like one that was about doing good works for your viewers. It was kind of headed up by Chester C. and Hannah Hart. and it
Oh
was just,
my gosh, I remember this.
and
Yeah,
and like it seemed that Chester's entire point for it was just don't tell your viewers to drink, and then other people had other ideas about what they wanted the panel to be, and so it was kind of a mess. What's that?
didn't he come in late?
Yes, it was. He was one of the co-creators of the panel, and he came in late.
He literally showed up 15 minutes late and was like, "Hey kids, don't drink."
Yep.
Thank you, Chester. Why? Why?
Yeah. So
So
even VidCon is susceptible to the not great panels.
Yeah. There's been some amazing panels where I've cried. There's been some ones where I'm just sitting there like, wrong choice, but I'm sitting too far in front to leave. Let me just pretend like I'm taking notes on my phone right now.
Yes, to both of those. I think the mental health ones are the ones that kind of bring me closest to bawling my eyes out in public. I don't want to do that, but I love the panels.
Absolutely. The stage one for mental health this past year was really powerful for me. It had Hannah Hart on it, Becky Jane Brown on there as well.
Oh, Becky O, yeah.
Megan, I'm totally blanking on her name right now.
Amara?
No, the blonde one. I'm going to find it. Anyway, the main point that I was getting at is that Megan Rinks, that's what it is. Okay. And what I was really happy about was having representation for Trichotillomania. Like having Becky there and talking about that was so powerful because most of the people on that panel didn't know what it was. And so there was such a learning experience, not only with the audience, but with the panelists as well.
That's great. Yeah, she's a good advocate for both her trichotillomania, dermatillomania, all of the. I think there's like a category in the DSM about like picking diseases, picking illnesses, and she's a good advocate for all of those. Plus, just an advocate for trying to like live your life while under the burden of the disabilities and the mental illnesses that she also has.
Absolutely,
she's great for that. I want to go to the question we got from the chat. Rebel Wheels NYC asks, do you find a difference between the panels that are about activism and representation and perhaps panels that are just based on YouTube fame? Well worded.
Yeah. Yes, I would. Mainly because I think that the ones about representation and activism ask real questions, whereas the ones about fame are very cyclical about like, just make the content that you love. Don't worry about the haters. Like, you're all the same. And I don't usually mind because if there's someone on there that I enjoy, like I don't care, but they usually all say the same thing. Like I know that there's usually one every year about like how to make better content or how to video make or something. And usually the conversation just ends up being literally that. They don't usually give actual tips. It's just like, just make what you like. It doesn't really matter. And it's like, okay, do you think that 200 people showed up just to tell you, like have them tell you what they already know? They came here for real advice. So I think that the people that come in for the activism panels, the representation panels, they prepare questions and they give consideration to the folks that are going to be there. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, once again, I tend to think that a lot of the burden of constructing a good panel falls on the moderator of the panel. They have to be able to like have conversations with the panelists before the panel happens and say, hey, these are the kind of things we're going to talk about. Do you have questions about it? What are some of your ideas from the before we get to the panel? What are the sort of things that you're going to say? Right. So they can kind of weed out the garbage answers and help them get down to like the really good answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Rachel says that she met up with you in around August.
So it was literally forever ago. Okay, that's fine.
And then she also says that there was a guy at the info desk, I think at VidCon, who tried to get a refund because he couldn't get into the panel he wanted to get into.
Wow.
It's like, sorry, dude.
She's one of the volunteers, so she probably experienced a lot more of the like backstage stuff than I did anyway. Okay, well, that guy has a lot more feelings than I do. And I don't think that he quite realized how VidCon works, and I wouldn't want him to go to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
That's a
Apparently
lot.
he was an industry pass holder. And he just thought that being an industry pass holder meant he literally had access to everything all the time because entitlement. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Nikki chimes in to say, I'm sorry, what's that?
I'm not surprised. That sounds about right for industry folk because they don't really go to these cons for enjoyment. They're going there usually for work.
Yeah. Although I will say that Asante has told me that she got bumped up to an industry pass one year when she was on a panel. And because of that industry pass, she was able to attend like some of the and I think definitely the parties, the networking parties, and really got a lot out of it as a small creator. So there's some benefit there to people who are there for content. But if you're coming from outside of YouTube with an industry pass because you want access to like businessy things, it gives you a completely different perspective on that.
Yeah, I agree. The networking events prior can either be really enjoyable or, well, that's not true. They can be awkward or they can be very enjoyable because you're watching a lot of awkward people get slowly more intoxicated. So regardless, they are definitely worth going to.
One of these days, I'm gonna get on like a less than famous panel or something, and I'll get it. I'll be able to get to that level. We'll see.
No, I definitely think that has to happen for sure. Because I think that it's worth experiencing.
I mean, if I had the money, I would do it. But that's, it's a funny thing that when VidCon went from having 2 tiers, industry and community, to 3 tiers, industry, community, and creator, all of a sudden you could see that middle tier just fill up with people who cared about despite the name, the people in the middle tier cared about the community the most.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would say that the first tier cares more about creators than anything else because that's why they're there. And I would say that the second tier cares the most about community other than the fact that they just make content.
Yeah. That was my perception as well. I am biased because I think like 90% of my friends were in the creator pass tier, but
yeah,
whatever. Nikki chimes in to say that she might be biased, but she likes the captioning workshops.
Hey, me too. What do you know?
Too.
And I love those workshops even more when there is an ASL and CART.
VidCon taught me about CART. I'd known a lot of stuff about accessibility before, but I didn't know about that until Ricky's panels.
Yeah. I think VidCon also learned about CART this year.
It was a harrowing lesson.
Yeah. It was not on their fault, but I do think that this was one of the first years that they really started to understand what CART was, because I think discussing that with Travis in the past year, they did not really understand the importance of it until it was implemented into those workshops, and they realized how effective it is, not only for folks who need that accessibility, but also are just like sitting in the back, and it's more effective to read and hear what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always going to push for accessibility so that the people who need it most, the deaf, hard of hearing people, have that in the CARTs and ASL interpreters, but there's no denying that there's benefits to literally everybody. Everybody can benefit from it.
Absolutely.
And it's one of my biggest pet peeves when people who are able-bodied complain about accessibility provisions for disabled people. Like, you can handle this, dude. Calm down. It's okay that you can see the words. It's okay.
I agree. And I think that it's not only beneficial for folks that need the accessibility in regards to like disabilities, but English language learners, folks that are international, folks who just like having subtitles and being able to like see what's going on because they can't actually see the lips moving. Yeah. I mean, it's beneficial in all ways. I think that there's just some people who find it more distracting to have the words up, but then just literally turn your head.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That's
all you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, the people I always forget to mention, and I gotta train myself to be better at this. But the auditory processing disorder people as well, they need it also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody needs it. Everybody can use it. We also have in the chat Rachel saying, "Allie, take me as your +1."
We can talk about that.
Rebel Wheels NYC says, "I hope one day they have a New York City VidCon." Yeah. I mean, when I was living on the East Coast, it hurt to have to save up so much money and figure out so much planning to get to Anaheim for regular VidCon.
Absolutely.
And now that they've got European VidCon and Australian VidCon, maybe they'll do an East Coaster one at one point. Possible.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been to Playlist, though, on that side, right?
I've been to Playlist DC, so not like the official big Playlist in Florida, but one of the ones up in the Mid Atlantic. The first year they had it in New York, I think, and then the second year and third year they've had it in DC. No, the first year they had it in New Jersey, and second year they had it in DC, and I've been to that one. I mean, it's okay, but it's such a different feeling from VidCon. It's so very different. Like I feel like, even no matter how much I dislike some of the things that VidCon has done, whether purposefully or not purposely in the past, I respect the fact that they really do seem to care about that middle tier, the creator track tier.
Sure.
That is like the big thing that they care about, even though it may not make them the most money. And that's great about VidCon. Playlist really seems to care most about the community, whatever their version of it is, the community level. And that's what they put all their attention and focus. And like the stuff for the creators is kind of an afterthought. It always feels like that. I don't know if it is. It just feels like that.
Okay. No, that's good to know, because I mean, one of my goals in the next year is to expand the disabilities on YouTube panels and also get some FemTube events into as many conventions as possible. And I think one of the things that's most indicative about Playlist to me is that you can't access their their info email or like a staff email on their website.
Yeah. It's
okay.
It's run a lot more like a Coachella or Lollapalooza type event where they have their own agenda and they push it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that the people who participate are like that. It's just the overall organization. But like Kaylee Kill and Mary Aikman, they are behind the smaller creator panels at Playlist and also in the UK with Mary Aikman's work. And they absolutely care about the creator level. They absolutely care about the people who are the smaller creators who are trying to connect with the community and make good content. And to Playlist credit, they did give Kaylee and Mary a smaller creators panel at Playlist Live, the big one. And I think that they're also doing I can't remember the name of it. Shoot. There's also another thing that they're doing that is about the smaller creators that Playlist is allowing. So it's awesome. If you can get in there, then they do allow for that. It just doesn't seem to be their greatest priority. But thankfully, people like Kaylee and Mary can make it a priority.
Okay. I have a new goal. I can work on this. We'll see about that. I don't have people there yet, but I can try.
Having Nikki, Def Punk, join us in the chat reminds me of fandom because she nerds out about stuff like Harley Quinn as much as I do, which immediately leads me to think about, Supernatural.
Yes, please go on.
I just want to know, have you been a hardcore Supernatural fan from the beginning? Did you come in late? Are you like a Destiel shipper? What's on your mind about Supernatural?
Okay, so I'm glad that we're finally getting into this. Finally, I've been a fan of Supernatural since 2010, and my favorite thing about Supernatural, and the reason why I call it the show that saves me, is because I found out about it because of the reruns that were on TNT. During the day. So it was like the 11 to 12 block that they would have every day. When I was on when I was bedridden during my like high schoolish experience, I couldn't really watch TV. It was all like too bright. I had migraines. Everything was like too loud. It was a lot of sensory stuff that I could not handle. The only show that I was able to end up watching was Charmed at the time. And
Love Charmed.
me too. And I had been watching that my entire life. However, I realized one of those days after I had left the TV on, and I ended up watching it at like 5, like very, very low. I just needed something on to keep me company. Was this dark show about two soft pretty boys. And it was dark enough that it didn't hurt my eyes, and it was low enough that it didn't hurt my ears and give me more of a migraine that I already had. So I started watching it. And at that time, I did not have a lot of reason to live because my body was just like literally dying, and I just didn't have a lot. But I only knew at that time that they were coming on from 10 to 12 every day. And barring any appointments or things that I had, I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch them at that time because I didn't have Netflix. And so I got caught up, and then I eventually, once I got better, was able to catch up on my laptop and caught up enough to get started for season 6. And I've been hooked ever since. Those boys in that story, shout out to Elvis that's next to me, it's my favorite show in the whole world. I love it so much.
Even though it's problematic?
Oh, yeah. Literally, like, my number one problematic fave. Like, there is so much wrong with that show. And I am the first one to call it out. Like, there's a lot wrong and going wrong with that show. But I think at its core, it's a message that I believe in. And but I think that one of my favorite things about media is calling out I don't like about it and the things that deserve to change.
That's great. I mean, it's important. It's like there's this weird concept that seems to have really reached its heyday in this last few years on the internet that if you like something, you have to defend all of it.
Oh, whatever. I like myself and I don't defend myself most of the time. Yeah, I don't believe in that at all. I think to be a supporter of something is to recognize all of it and to hold it accountable to be its best of anything. And I think that if you're not, then you're not giving it the most credit that it can.
You're here. That is a philosophy that can apply both to problematic shows and problematic friends.
Very true. In regards to other questions, I do not ship Destiel, but I don't mind. I'm not like an anti of anything. Like, I mean, I live on Tumblr. I have been seeing it for almost 7 years now. Your girl sees it. But I'm not passionately a Destiel shipper. I'm not passively like a Wincest shipper.
The Wincest. Oh no, I don't like that.
Listen, they're both very proud camps on that space. Okay. I'm neither here nor there for either of them. I just want all of my soft boys to be safe and happy, and I don't really care how it goes regardless. I don't want like potential love interests of any gender or sexual orientation to be killed off because random is being a piece of shit. But that's it. That's all I care about. But I do think that going to those cons, because those are the only other cons that I've been to, are very, very good.
Wait, you've been to Supernatural cons or like fan cons?
Twice. Yeah. Yeah.
What is that like? I have no experience with that.
They're pretty good. They're so small. I went to VanCon in August of 2015, and then I went to CCon in Seattle in March of this year.
Is VanCon in Vancouver?
Vancouver, BC. Yeah. Gotcha. So I went. The Vancouver one was the celebration of 10 years of the show, and And then the Seattle one, I went because I was obsessed. They're so expensive. It's so absurd. It makes me so angry. But it's such a small space. I would say at max there's maybe like 1,500 people there.
Wow, it's tiny.
It's so small. And everybody's always cosplaying. And there's so much merch, and they're all just like nerds, like absolute nerds. And it's the cutest thing. And it's not even like they're not all young. I would say most of them are older.
Interesting.
Very diverse population of all spectrums. And I loved it. It's so good. I would definitely recommend it.
Did you? Let me ask you this. Did you see any Charlie cosplays?
Lots.
Oh, yes! My favorite character.
Lots. And they even had the little, one of those little pop things.
The Funko?
Yes, those. They sell them at one of the booths, and they've got, like, literally everybody. Charlie is one of the most popular there. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about Charlie.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil things for people who haven't seen Charlie's arc to date, but some of what they did to Charlie made me very angry. Made me very angry.
Yeah. But I'm amazed by the kind of quality of actors that they get on that show. Like the fact that they've had Mark Sheppard for that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's astonishing. Mark Sheppard, the man who's in like in every genre TV show basically ever, has stayed on Supernatural. It's remarkable.
Yeah. And when I saw him in March, he had just had his daughter Isabella, and they live in Bellingham, so very close to Seattle. And he was
he lives in Washington State? I didn't know that.
Most of them do. Yeah. Misha lives in Bellingham as well. Jensen and Jared have spaces in Vancouver as well as in Austin, so they can commute there.
Is it a very short trip from where you are to Vancouver?
It's about 6 hours.
That's it?
Yeah.
I did not realize.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
Man.
Yeah, so when I went up for VanCon, I drove. When I went for Seattle, I took the Bolt bus, and that was about 3 hours. So it wasn't bad at all.
Nice. I thought you were a lot closer to Seattle than you are, I guess.
I mean, it's not that bad. It's just like a straight up on I-5. And most of the time it's just traffic. So
It's not bad. What is that dinging I'm hearing?
I don't know what that is, but I will try to find out.
Is that me?
My phone is literally on silent too. You know what? It's
too.
me. I'm making those noises because my computer is on silent and my phone is on silent. So it must be me. My soul is making those noises because we are talking about Supernatural.
Too funny. So have you taken a stalkerish cruise by Bellingham?
I have not. No.
Good.
I don't particularly feel that way about any of the actors there. I want them to be happy and to sleep and to see their families. And as long as they're doing that, I don't really have any other feelings.
Well, that's good. That is a very respectful way to be a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I've paid a lot of money to see them and to hear them, and I just want them to have a few weekends off every once in a while. So
yeah, I mean, people need it. People need it. Rachel in the chat says that she went to a Doctor Who con when she was in college, and it was adorable and perfect, and just like you're describing about the Supernatural cons. Yeah,
that sounds about right. Yeah, it was so nice to see so much passion jumbled up into one little space for sure.
Yay. Rebel Wheels NYC says, woot for nerds, hashtag my people. Yeah.
Nerds.
Yeah.
I adore them dearly, and I am one of them. So I love it lots.
That's awesome. Rachel explained to Rebel that the Doctor Who con is called Chicago TARDIS. Great name. And it still goes on, apparently.
That's fantastic. I love that.
We're also joined in the chat by Mark Hilton. Hi, Mark.
You know what? I haven't met a Mark I didn't like. It's such a strong name. No. Do you have feelings about people's names? Because I do.
I have people's names, but I know that it's only because I've had certain interactions with people of those names.
Well, of course.
Like I've had interactions of a romantic nature with 3 different Julies. So whenever I meet someone who's named Julie, I immediately like suss out what's going to happen with this person.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. It's like a Catherine situation.
Yes. I've had a life where I've had an abundance of Julies.
That's fair. But yeah, I have a lot of feelings about people's names. And I think that it's fair to transition your experiences onto them in that kind of just don't let them know.
I mean, it works out fine if they're positive experiences, but when you have a negative association with a name, that could just unfairly disadvantage somebody in your eyes.
True. Yeah. I mean, I'm actually not going to go into it because I don't know who's watching this, but yeah, I have a lot of feelings about names.
Okay, so much for the everything is on the table, Allie.
You know what? Screw that. I've never met a Wyatt that I liked. I'll tell you that. Most of them talk too loud. I have not met an Emily that I disliked, though. All of them are good.
Emily's are great.
That's about all the ones I can come up with. Most of the Kelseys that I know like to sleep. And they're fairly apathetic. But that's about it. Yeah. I meet a lot of people with very similar names. And
what can you say about the various spelled names of Haley?
Okay. I have a lot of feelings about this too. So this messes with my Haley's a lot because okay, how do I differentiate with this? My Haley, Portland Haley, it's always spelled wrong. And I'm sure that my other Haley, LA Haley, this is confusing. LA Haley as well. Okay, but the thing is so this pisses me off in a good way. They're both fire signs, and they're not just both fire signs, they're Aries as well. They're literally the same person. It annoys me to no end. And when they met each other, they were just like 2 magnets, and they just like fused together. And they love each other so much, and it pisses me off because it makes me happy, but like in an annoying way because my friends hang out and they have more in common than they have in common with me. Listen, not okay with it. But I am, because I like that when my friends are happy with each other. But they're the same person. How does that happen? I don't get it. Whatever. I'm not better.
Lies.
Don't get it.
Def Punk Nikki in the chat says, Allie, in regards to your thing with names, I have a thing for middle names. I don't know why, but I'm fascinated by middle names.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And Rebel Wheels asked, "What's your view on Julie's?"
Oh, okay. Well, personally, I like the way that they're like written in cursive. Like, I just think that they probably cry pretty easily. And shout out to the dogs. There's literally no one here, and they're just like, I hear a sound, I must freak out. Anyway, you know what? I'm going to stick with that reaction for Julie. I bet that they do that. I bet they freak out with no sound.
That's interesting. In my experience, the Julies have been prone to cry. I don't know if they freak out with no sounds. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell us about your pets. You said you have a little farmyard of pets in there.
I do. Yes. I am pet sitting right now for 4 pets. They're very cute. And I'm with them until Monday. So I have 2 more days with them. It's been a month. It's been a very long time. There's 2 cats. One, his name is Kelsey. And then there's 2 pups. One's name is Bambi, and his name is Elvis. And they're lovely. I like them a lot. I needed pets in my life. I hadn't had them in a long time, so it's been fun to hang out with them. I have to wear black a lot for working retail, so I'm not used to the pet hair thing at all.
I'm used to that. I'm familiar with it.
But it's been great. I was not a cat person prior to a month ago because I had a lot of negative experiences with pets growing up. No, that's not true. I had a lot of negative experiences with cats growing up. My grandma had one that loved to like bite and claw at people, and I was like, absolutely not. No, I'm not a cat person. These cats just are fat cats, and they just love to like sit on your lap or like right here and just like chill. And I love that. I understand now why people like cats, but I'm still a dog person.
Likewise. Do I remember correctly that you are particularly a corgi fan?
Yes. I love them so much. Their little legs are my favorite thing in the whole world. I love corgis in vests. I love corgis going upstairs. I love corgis in bow ties. I follow an absurd amount of corgi accounts on all of my social media.
That's so wonderful.
I'm not ashamed by it at all. Yeah. There's some people that love like French bulldogs. I get it. Or like pit bulls or like pugs or whatever. I get it, but you're wrong. It's corgi. They're pure and wholesome, and they're in so many media references that it works out perfectly. And I love when people breed with corgis because they make beautiful things, even though I don't know that it's great for their health.
Oh, that's amazing. Rachel says cats are the best. And then immediately it was followed up by Mark Hilton, who says, yes, corgis for the win. Also, they are the British Queen's official pets too. So
exactly. So someone understands. Yeah, they get it. They understand I don't know how much that they're getting right there, but they got that right.
I mean, they're practically royal because of that.
Yes. And I subscribe to that kind of royalty. But if I ever get a pet, I would want to adopt one. I don't know why anybody would give up a corgi, so I'm not going to buy one from a breeder that is wrong. So
I mean, I'm sure that once in a while a corgi ends up in a shelter because sometimes people suck. Once in a while, it happens.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Great surprise present for you, though, Allie, is in the chat. Nikki says, Allie, I'm going to spam post pictures on my Insta of my brother's corgi and
my God.
all of them just to mentally hear you squeal.
On it, I will. I love corgis so much. They're so pure, and their hearts are so full of excitement and joy, and it makes me very happy inside.
Oh, that's wonderful. I gotta remember to tag you when I see corgis around too.
And I feel it because there's so many folks that love them. Katie Rose, Emily, corgis.
Connor Manning.
Connor Manning loves corgis. Like, it's a thing. There's people that love them as well, and so I get it. Yeah. They
absolutely. Speaking of all those friends that you've mentioned, and also thinking back to Cody watching us and talking in the chats, one of the things that I just love about you the most is that how much you love your friends and you care about these people in your life, and you never miss an opportunity to support them and say positive things about them online. Have you always been like this? Have you always been like the mom of your friend group?
For my friends, of course. Yes. Yeah. No, I've always been that way. I think that it has to do mostly with me being a overly prepared person, and by overly prepared I mean, yes, organized, but also mostly anxious. And so I always am the person that takes care of my friends. I'm always that person that has like a to-go bag of like, do you need Band-Aids? Got them. Do you need Kleenex? I got them. Like, because that was how I was raised, is like, nobody else is going to have those things, so you need to have those things. So yeah, I take care of my friends. For my friends, yes.
Are you an only child?
I am. Yep, I am an only child, and I definitely act like an only child. I do not I do not understand unnecessary noises well. I don't understand roughhousing at all. But I was surrounded, like all of my friends had siblings, so I was never in need noise kind of thing.
I am not an only child, but I also don't understand noise or roughhousing, so it's not just that.
I mean, but yeah, only children are a very interesting concept. That is another thing where I do enjoy generalizations, because I think that the characterizations of younger, middle, and older, and then only siblings are so interesting, because I think that people definitely kind of fall into those characterizations a lot.
Really? Then can you predict what I am?
Oh.
Let's put these theories to the test, Allie.
Well, you're definitely not younger. And you're not only, because you just said that. So you don't act out enough for a middle child for me. So I'm going to say older, but potentially middle. Am I even close?
You're actually spot on, because
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
because my parents, my father had 4 kids from his first marriage, and they were very old by the time I came along. Like they were, I think the youngest of them was like 19 or 20 when I was born.
Okay.
And then I was born to his second marriage.
Okay.
But my mom couldn't have children biologically, so they adopted. So
Okay.
I was the first of our second marriage family, and then they also had a girl. So I have a younger daughter. I mean, a younger sister. So they had 4 kids from previous marriage for my father, and then me as the first kid in this marriage, and then a younger sister. So I'm kind of like the older brother, but also the middle child.
Ha! Yes. Okay. Sounds about right. Yeah, you definitely don't pick fights enough for a younger child and don't rebel enough to be a middle child.
Yeah. For most of my life, I went through trying to avoid confrontation, and I still mostly do that, except in my latter years, in the last half decade or so, I have started taking on confrontation for like adult reasons, like adulthood. I need to like deal with my taxes or ask for a pay raise or whatever. But mostly on behalf of other people. Like I'll take up fights for people who can't fight for themselves.
Same. I have always been that person. I don't like confrontation at all, but I will always pick a fight for someone if there's an injustice there. And it seems counterintuitive, but yeah, no, I always was that kid who got in trouble because I was fighting with bullies in school. So like not disciplinarily in trouble, but the teachers would be like, can you just stop doing that? Like, I understand that you're defending people, but like, stop putting yourself in harm's way. And I was like, but they're getting hurt. This is not okay. So yeah, no, I definitely like got into verbal and almost physical altercations with older boys a lot in elementary school because they were picking on kids. So
I like how it's specifically boys who were picking on kids.
Oh yeah. I mean, there were a few times in middle school where I tried to interrupt some. Elvis, please stop growling. I understand that you're upset as well. But there were some times where, like, as we got older, there were some friend groups and where there was some drama that needed to be interrupted, but there weren't girl bullies in elementary school. It was just older boys that were picking on folks. There was one, I didn't stand for it. So yeah, the teachers just took me aside and they were like, we get it, but like, don't just call a teacher. And I was like, but the teachers won't do anything. They were like, okay.
You went right back there. You were teen Allie for a second there.
Honestly, yeah. No, I was definitely like Weehawk and Dawn, and they were like, no, please don't settle this with a gun shootout. Way too feisty as a child for my own good.
But you avoid confrontation on your own behalf?
Oh
even?
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I don't like getting into altercations of any sort. That is like a very big anxiety thing for me, but for other people, oh yeah. In a heartbeat. I will definitely like people for sure.
That's interesting. So let me ask, who in your life fights for you?
Well, that's a great question that I don't well, that's a great question, Paul. Let's probably do that. That's one of the things that we talk about in my therapy sessions. So, yeah, but that's okay.
I mean, I'll tell you right now that whether you realize it or not, I mean, you definitely have a YouTube squad of people who would fight for you at the drop of a hat.
Well, yes. Yeah. I know that. It's just the more like you have to ask for help. Ugh.
Yeah, I actually have at least one video, maybe two videos, where I've talked about how hard it is for me to ask for help, even though I know I'm supposed to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I was not good about asking for help throughout my adolescence. And then Nick made that much worse because then I didn't have a choice and I needed support, which was not effective for someone who did not already process those kinds of things. So asking for help is not one of my favorite things because that requires you to be vulnerable. And that's a character development plot that I'm still working on.
It's so hard. I mean, the weird thing is that it's seen as a bad characteristic to need help. I don't know if that's just a U.S. thing because of our stupid like capitalism / puritanical background or whatever, but for whatever reason, it seems like it's a weakness to ask for help when it's really just realizing what you can't do and dealing with the reality of it.
Sure. Well, and there's definitely a weakness of asking for too much help. So, but that line is never really drawn. Like in any situation, you don't really know what that line it is at any given time. So it's hard to put yourself out there and ask for support when you don't know if you'll be perceived as being like needy. No real defined understanding of that.
Yeah. One of my mini quests that I'm always on is when I see someone on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook talking about how they're sorry to ask for help or how they don't want to be needy or how they feel bad about relying on their friends too much. I always try to jump in and say, you're not being too much.
Right. Yeah. I think that that's an important reminder in general, but especially during those times, because it takes so much to reach out into the void and say like, this is where I'm at right now. And I am looking for that help. And so to be reminded at that time of like, you are okay. This is okay. Like you still matter, I think is very valuable.
Yeah. One of the things that I also deal with is just like this fear of rejection, I guess, with regards to help. Like, what if I ask for help and nobody hears me or nobody can help?
Yep. And I think that is such a valid one, but it's also like a real one, especially with social media, because especially since all of them are moving towards like algorithm based now, like what if your tweet just isn't seen?
Yeah.
It's not that people are ignoring it, but it may just be that your friends at that time are just not on their phones, or it's just not being shown up at the top of their feed. And so you're perceiving it as nobody sees me, nobody hears me, my problems aren't worthy. But it may just be that, you know, they're just like, it's just not being shown to them. And so how do you navigate that if someone's in a in a crisis and needs that support? But, you know, how do you not feel guilty as someone who sees that later on
20 minutes later and there is no feedback on that kind of thing. Shout out to the dogs. They also have a lot of feelings about giving that support to people.
They
That's
do.
one of the hard things about social media is that fear of like you constantly need to be online in case someone needs you, and when to take breaks, because you need to do that for your own well-being, and trusting that you are surrounded by enough of a community that if someone else needs support while you're off taking care of yourself, that will be taken care of.
You are just in my head, Allie Taylor. That is so what I've been going through this past month or so. Rachel in the chat says, asking for help is the worst, all caps.
Yeah.
Mark Hilton says, I think it's a thing in the UK too, about seeing asking for help as a weakness thing. Okay. And Rebel Wheels in New York says it is poses a theory that it's a patriarchy thing. Being vulnerable is seen as feminine and thus seen as negative.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, sure. I can see it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm older than most of the people on YouTube. I'm 41 years old, and I have experienced from the beginning of my life to the end of my life a distinct change in the way people view femininity. But when I was a kid, it was absolutely commonplace to call people a girl or a pussy if they were not strong 100% of the time.
Right.
And like the one thing to my benefit, one of the nice things about being a weirdo like me was that I rejected the typical masculinity in that. I never liked that. Even when I was like a hormonal 13-year-old running around trying to like beat up people with futility, I never succeeded. But even when I was trying to do that, I still rejected the idea that there was a necessity for masculinity in me. But because I could be beaten up by it, I kept that quiet until my 30s.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's a whole nother live chat, I think, about gender stereotypes and performativity, because of the fact that I think that also is integrated into YouTube as well, because of how we have to perform gender here as well. And what it means when folks don't perform it in the way that the viewers expect them to.
Yeah. I mean, I've actively pursued subscribing to YouTube channels where there is a rejection of gender normativity and gender essentialism. I mean, from my buddy Milo Stewart, he's great, to Riley J. Dennis, she's wonderful, to Herb Dino, they're fantastic. I mean, I try to make sure that I am not subscribed to a majority of, the societal default hetero cis person. I don't want that to be the majority. I want that to be just interspersed with everybody else.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I think trying to make sure that your YouTube subscriptions reflect the kind of tolerance, the kind of world that you want to see is incredibly valuable. And I think that events like FemTube or events like the No More Captions are important for those kinds of things, because they help people give people a space to reevaluate who they are subscribed to, not only just on YouTube, but on other social media platforms as well, and reevaluate the kind of mission statement that they are reflecting by consuming this content.
Here. In our capitalistic society, we can make a slight difference by choosing where to spend our money, but on YouTube, we make a difference by choosing where to spend our time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is also like a monetary component because of the fact that there are ads on there as well. But I do think that, yes, the time is very valuable, and the interactions lead to more viewers. And yeah, I think that your time is incredibly valuable on spaces like that, for sure.
Oh yeah, and for me, like I regularly, this month has been a good example of that. I regularly do not have the spoons to watch every video from every single person out there. I have to pick and choose where I spend my energy. And I'm glad that in my sub feed, I have a lot of different types of faces with a lot of different types of viewpoints.
I agree. Yeah, I think it makes me really happy to see how my feed has gone from when I first started consuming this content on YouTube back in 2009, 2008 or whatever to now. And it's less it's less cookie cutter, I guess.
Yeah, less cookie cutter.
And it's more about personal testimony. Like, I think that the folks that I'm subscribed to now, it's not high quality in a sense of like lots of cameras, lots of money, lots of action. It's just more about sharing stories and what matters to folks. And I think that I'm starting to realize that that's what I care more about, is I'd much rather hear about what matters and the awesome authenticity and the passion that they have, rather than see like, I don't know, a fake voice and someone who's just doing this for a sponsorship but it's on a nice camera kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't begrudge people who need to make money off of YouTube and go for sponsorships, but it is certainly the case that that's not going to be the kind of content that I'm refreshing my feed for.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are joined in the chat by Zainab. Hi, Zainab from the UK.
Hi.
Who says that less cookie cutter is such an awesome way of putting it.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and that actually brings me to the point that you are really good with words, miss.
I try. Not always, but I do try my best. I think the words matter a lot. So
Likewise. And I respect a great deal that both in your tweets, you seem to construct everything to be very carefully worded so that you are not misconstrued, which is great. And then in your videos, I don't know if you script your videos or if you go off the fly, but you're always like hitting that le mot juste, just the right word.
I usually put bullet points down of kind of topic ideas that I want to do. I used to script them like to a T when I first started, like very first started, because I was nervous and didn't think that I would be able to just like come up with words on the fly. Then I went off the cuff for a while. I went back to scripted, I would say about 1.5 years ago, because that was when I started captioning things. And I thought, well, why don't I just write down everything I want to say? Then I can just go off of that. And if I diverge from that, I could just adjust it. That came off a little inauthentic for me personally. So now I've realized that I would much rather have a little bit of a longer video that's more my voice, more authentic, than trying to confine my voice into a scripted space. So that's what I do now. And it's more rambly and more tangents and more pauses. So I definitely could not do the Vlogbrothers format of 4 minutes, fast-paced. That's not my style of talking. I love it, though. I'm proud of them, and I think that what they do is amazing, but it's not my cadence personally. But I do think that I'm starting to hit some sort of groove in the way that I convey ideas into video format.
I have lost my groove recently, so I need to figure out what that is. I'm going to try different ways of making videos to see if I can find a voice for myself again. But, I mean, I definitely can see that, like, your latest format for videos, excepting the No More Captions video, your latest formats for videos much more feels like this kind of conversation, which is great.
That's what I prefer, because at the end of the day, I'm not actually expecting anybody to watch these. I'm more expecting to sit down and talk to a camera, to edit them, so to rewatch this content for like 3 hours, and then post it online and let it go. And whatever happens to it, happens to it. But I don't actually expect anyone to watch it. So when there are people that watch it, or there are people that interact with it, I'm genuinely surprised every single time. Like, oh, there's someone that cared enough to watch this content and then interact with it. So I think that it's more valuable for me to just sit down and talk as if I was talking to a friend rather than a camera, because that's just how I talk. Except for that in person, it's more expletives and more like it's just more being excited. So I try to like tone that down a little bit more. One of the things that I think was most indicative of my personality was the woman that did the cart for community panel at VidCon, said, so I watched all of your videos before I got here so that I could be prepared for how you speak and like your cadence and everything. And you're so much more excited in person, like you talk so much faster. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how this goes. So that was embarrassing, but also very real.
That is
whatever.
Interesting.
It's fine.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
In the chat, Zainab says, I really can't work authentically off of scripts herself. So she gets it. And then Rebel Wheel said, I have to get going and tend to life, but I just wanted to send love to Peoples and to say thank you to Allie for all she does with disabilities on YouTube.
Oh, well, thank you for joining. That's so kind. I'm glad that you were able to stay for so long. It's a long time to be able to take out of your day.
It is. I mean, one of the reasons why I go for this usually around 2 hours format is that I think that it makes it for fun little like background listening if you are doing something else, like if you're preparing for your day or if you're making a meal or if you're driving somewhere. You know, it's a podcast basically where you happen to get to see our faces.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you putting them on iTunes? Like, are you going to make them into podcast format?
I put the first like 5 or 6 up on iTunes and like nobody listened to them, so I stopped doing it. But I can. I mean, if anybody ever asks me to, I can certainly go back and put all my episodes on iTunes.
Sure.
We're also joined by Asante. Hi, Asante.
Oh my gosh, hi. One of my favorites. I just saw her picture from her credits of being on Arthur.
Yeah.
My childhood dreams come true. The fact that she does that is like one of my favorite things in the whole world.
It is very impressive. But you know, Asante is on this like career trajectory. She's just like rocketing up into space. So who knows what she's gonna do next? She's gonna be all over the place.
I haven't asked her yet, but I wonder how she feels about all those Arthur memes that have been going around, given the fact that like she works on Arthur. Like a lot.
Maybe she will let us know in the chats.
Because I feel like that's an odd time for like a culturally relevant meme to be happening when you are working on that space. Like I wonder what the staff thinks, if they even like know that that's what's going on. They might be older. I don't know what the general population of that staff is.
We'll see. We'll see if she has an answer for us. I just realized that I made kind of an ableist comment just now because I referred to this as being something viable for background listening, and Def Punk Nikki points out to me, background listening. I wonder what that's like. Sarcasm. Sorry, Nikki. I messed up.
Touche.
Yeah. What I really wish is that I wish that they I had access to somebody who could do captioning for me for these long format videos. Like I can manage up to like 20, 25 minutes captioning myself, and that takes me literally all day long if I haven't scripted it out.
Right.
For a 2-hour video like this, I just can't do it. I just can't.
Yeah.
If I had the money, I would 100% pay for it, but I don't have the money.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely something that, yeah, I think one of my primary goals, because I'm in the process right now of trying to curate my goals for personally and also within YouTube for 2017. And one of my goals is to start going back to the older videos and start. Thankfully, they're shorter than the ones that I make now, but I would say that some of the ones that I've made in this past year are about 25 to 30 minutes. And thankfully, I actually enjoy captioning things a lot. I wish that I had more free time to be able to start captioning for other folks. And I think that might be one of my goals as well, is like if I do get that free day or that free couple of hours, to see if I can just start helping people with those kinds of things, because it's easy for me. I'm an auditory learner, so it's really easy for me to be able to hear those things and then quickly type them out and transcribe them. But for something as long as this, I would imagine that for someone to do all of it, it would be hard. I wonder if there's a way for folks to volunteer like 25-minute increments or 30-minute increments or something like that.
They actually can do that with the YouTube community submission of captions, which I have turned on for all my videos, including this one. It'll also be turned on for this. You can, in fact, do a chunk of it and then save it, and then somebody else can come in and continue that.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that would be, I mean, I would imagine that would be the most ideal way for
Well, one of the problems is that for the longest time, YouTube has had the auto generation of captions functionality, but it doesn't work for long form videos. Like I think it caps out at around half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that.
Really?
Yeah. So if you even though I've got captioning turned on my entire channel, if you go to like my recordings of the VidCon panels, none of them have auto generated captions because YouTube doesn't turn on that functionality.
Oh.
Yeah. So at this last VidCon, Ken Herenstein, the engineer who heads up the team that does the captioning programming on YouTube, he said that one of the things that they're looking to is opening up the ability for auto-generated captions to run on long videos, which would be a huge help.
Yeah, that would help a lot of people, especially since they're in the process of making that system more effective in general for the auto-generated captions.
Yes, I'm very much. I mean, he's going to be one of the speakers at the YouTube Accessibility Summit, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can tell us about progression, even from June, from VidCon. I want to see what has happened since then with regards to the captioning technology.
Well, I mean, that's a fair amount of time. It's, almost 6 months. So I would imagine that, that's a fair amount of opportunities for progress there.
I hope so. We'll find out. I'll find out. I'll report about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait to get the feedback from that summit and see how everyone enjoys it.
I'm looking forward to it. And I think I'm going to see Nikki, Def Punk, at the Accessibility Summit. I saw that she RSVP'd yes to the Facebook event. I'm very excited about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a great group of people.
It's weird. I didn't start off as part of the disabilities community on YouTube. My big push was always been for feminism and women's rights and supporting women. But like this last year or two, I've definitely gotten to be a part of it, supporting everybody, being an ally.
Well, I think that I would argue that it's an essential component of YouTube. That this is one of the most accessible spaces on the internet right now for a majority of folks. And I mean, barring the fact that there are some countries where YouTube is not allowed, I think that this allows for so many folks to share their stories in other ways where it may not be celebrated or tolerated, and that needs to be honored. I'm hoping, I have it planned anyway, to finally share a little bit about the senior thesis that I did, which was about disabilities on YouTube, and I need to start gathering all the materials that I used for that, because the primary texts that I used for that were Annie Laney's videos.
Yes, awesome.
I should probably check in with Annie first to see if it's cool to actually talk about my thesis, because I did not let Annie know prior to doing my thesis that was what I used for that. But it's like literally like I did my thesis, a 30-page paper about why disabilities on YouTube matters. But awesome. I'm hoping to hopefully gather that in some sort of nice little box and share that eventually.
That would be very cool. However you can present it to the public, I will consume it.
Yeah.
In the chat, Nikki says, I have to have my fiance caption my videos. I can't hear my own self talk. Well, good thing you got a fiance.
That's true. That's what fiancés are for.
That's what they're for.
Yeah.
And Nikki confirms that she will be there. She's Ricky's +1 at the Accessibility Summit. Hooray.
Awesome. Over Devin. It's all about Nikki.
Exactly. In addition to being on YouTube, you're all over the place. You're like doing so many things.
Yeah, I do some things.
You have a podcast with Haley.
I do, yes. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So Chapters and Chill is a new podcast that came out at the beginning of October, the end of September, that kind of thing. I ignored Haley's petition to call it Chaps and Chili. That's absurd, but I settled on the fact that it is the hashtag for it. It's a literary podcast where we spend a month book and delving into the themes and the character development, and we wanted a space to critically analyze books for fun because that's something that we both enjoy,
but not necessarily having to do it within the context of an educational setting. And it's been so fun. I love podcasts so much. I'm hoping at some point that I can find someone, or hopefully if Patreon goes on enough, that I can hopefully pay someone to do transcribing for those so that I can make them more accessible. I have them up on YouTube as well, so that hopefully if anyone is interested in captioning those, that can be more space as well. Because the thing that makes me so upset is I love podcasts because I am an auditory learner, so I just am always listening to podcasts. And it makes me sad that folks can't interact with those, because there's so much good content there, and there's so many great stories that I think even people that were traditionally YouTubers are on podcasts now, and they're so much more raw and real, and I love them a lot. But yes, it's a podcast, and I enjoy it a lot, and it's very much the dynamic that Haley and I have, which is great, and it works much better for the two of us, because we originally had done a collab channel, oh my God, almost 4 years ago. Did not necessarily work for both of our creative styles. The podcast is a much more effective means.
That's really cool. By the way, Asante did respond to say, oh my God, we retweeted the Solange meme. They're amazing.
Awesome. I love it.
So the Arthur memes are appreciated, apparently.
Good. I'm glad that memes are understood in that space. I would imagine so. I think that even older folks on Facebook understand memes to some degree, so I would imagine that the folks that are working on Arthur would get them.
One would think, especially because it's I think what is it, WGN out of Boston, and they're interacting with younger people all the time. That's their audience.
True.
Their audience. They need to understand that language.
Right.
Now, how about your theoretical podcast with Cody? When's that going to happen?
Okay, so it's soon. We are working on that. So the music is almost done. The art for it is almost done. We have had several Skype calls for it, and the potential release date is a month from now for the anniversary of the Twilight movie coming out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Cody did not. But as with all of this, they are begrudgingly letting me continue this. But yes, it's called Into the Twilight. It is going to be a podcast about Cody and I exploring the Twilight series, both the books, the movies, all the spin-offs, those kinds of things, because I am a fan / stan of Twilight, critically, obviously, and Cody has never interacted with Twilight other than the fact that they have lived in America and obviously have understood some of the references. So it's going to be absolutely awesome. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
So it's going to be dissecting the books, then dissecting the movie in between, and the spin-offs and everything, and really delving into it all. And there hasn't been a Twilight podcast since 2008. Checked on iTunes before we even started this prep, and I'm really excited about it because it's just hilarious to me that they have never interacted with Twilight. Why? I have a lot of feelings about it.
I mean, to be fair, I also live in America and have barely interacted with Twilight. I watched, I think, the first 2 movies, and I feel like that's it for me.
You're in for a wild ride.
Now, wait, but you mentioned the spinoffs. You're not talking about Shades of Grey, are you?
Well.
Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a hell of a podcast.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a podcast. Is basically what this is gonna be. The first plans is to call out all of our sponsors immediately, to be at Audible, at Casper Mattresses, Cloud, hit us up. But yes, I'm super excited about it because I think that I want to be creating as much content as possible. And this is such an easy way to do it. So I definitely want to have as many discussions about books as I possibly can.
That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to the day when my future students find out that I have a Twilight podcast. That's fine. Whatever.
They'll love it, because if you're teaching about literature and you talk about Twilight, they can just go there as if it's like Cliff Notes.
Hopefully it's safe enough. Hopefully it's not just Cody and I blatantly cursing for like an hour. But yes, yeah, should be great. I'm really
Cursing's not that big of a deal. Just include like content warnings about the actual garbage stuff that's covered in the Twilight series.
Right. Yeah. I'm not necessarily worried about the students. I'm more worried about the parents of the students.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I forgot about those.
Right. Yeah. I'll deal with it when it happens. Whatever. And that was a sound bite used in my demise. That's me saying whatever to cursing in the internet.
I mean, that's generally my response to concerns about cursing on the internet as well. I mean, I don't curse a lot, but sometimes, like, some of the topics that I talk about deserve some profanity.
I agree. Yeah, I very much subscribe to Watsky's beliefs of cursing, that there's the idea of it just changing language and, like, disrupting language, and then also using it to express emotion as well. So I'm here for it.
I haven't heard his formulated theories, but it sounds like I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
In the chat, Nikki Death Punk says, "I didn't know I needed this podcast in my life until now."
Just you wait. I'm hoping that we will be able to make sure that it's fully transcribed so that you can interact with it as you choose. But it's gonna be a hell of a podcast, and I think that's now the tagline. I'll have to check with Cody, but yeah, that seems pretty apt, honestly.
It does. It's so awesome. How is your health these days, if you don't mind my asking?
Tumultuous, I think, is the most appropriate word. I would say right now I'm semi-decent. And hopefully on an upward swing. But usually during the winter, my immune system just like pieces out for about 6 months. So we'll see. But right now I'm sort of okay. And barring my foot not just like falling off, because it's like having some problems right now. And my pseudotumor not just like making my migraines really hard. I should be fairly decent right now. But I don't know. It's a whole new adventure every single day.
Yeah. Mark Hilton is back in the chats, and Nikki says, "I'm just sitting here loving the pup on Allie's lap and Drew chilling behind Paul. Bring all the dogs."
Yeah. Elvis, say hi. Elvis, say hi. Yeah. He does not like us. He only likes to come up on his own accord.
He doesn't like being on camera. He's a private individual.
That's true. When I tried to take pictures of him, he does not. He just turns and he does not like it. So, yeah. Kelsey is up there eating. Mitch is down there sleeping, and Bambi is literally at my feet.
Bambi's been quiet.
I would show you, which is surprising because she is a chatterbox and she will just like scream for no reason. So, but Elvis, I cannot leave anywhere without him following right on my heels. So it makes sense why he's on my lap.
That does make sense. Hey, I guess maybe Haley heard that we were talking about her, because Haley, like the wolf, has joined us in the chat. Hello,
hey,
friends.
what's up?
It was all bad things, Haley. Nothing but bad things about you.
Hey, don't expose me like that. No, it was only bad things about my Portland Haley.
Okay.
Not Santa Barbara Haley. Santa Barbara Haley is fine. They're both friends without me, and I don't like it. Not fair. Yeah, see, Elvis doesn't like it either. He doesn't like it. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Nikki says Phoenix, her dog, is at the end of my bed doing the head tilt whenever Elvis growls.
Oh, I bet. I bet he is. That makes sense. Yeah. Whatever. It's fine. I bet that would be really frustrating to hear another dog and be like, yes, so what is that sound?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because the fidelity of my audio isn't that great or what, but Drew never really reacts when she hears like dogs on YouTube or dogs on my TV shows when I'm watching them. Like she'll hear them, but she doesn't seem to do anything. What's up with that?
I think Drew's just like the most chill, and that's pretty awesome.
She's really not. She's not like we encounter like this tiny fluffy dog. Oh, I need to put that on her Instagram. My dog, P.S., has her own Instagram now because I thought it was long overdue.
I love that.
And I'm going to put up a video of her interacting with this tiny fluffy puppy. I think it was a cockapoo. And it was just like running around like a hyper little mad dog, jumping all over Drew, getting tangled up in the leash. It was adorable. And Drew was all about it. Drew was like excited.
Oh, that's amazing. These little chunks cannot be around anybody else. Big dog, small dog, anything. They just scream and go at them. So I have to turn around and go the other way because they just can't. I think that they want to be social, but they really are just trying to fight with them. So absurd. I'm like, you literally don't even weigh like 2 pounds, I'm pretty sure. Like, please stop.
I mean, they're kind of like some of my Twitter friends who are tiny and maybe not the strongest, but will constantly say, fight me.
Okay, yeah, that's too real. I know a lot of people like that. A lot of people watching this, to be honest. And okay, speaking of which, both of my Haleys are literally talking to each other on Twitter right now. I'm so about this. I'm actually not mad about it because I really love it when my friends become friends with other, like, at peace with myself. But like, my friends, that means me. I'm involved. Make me the intention. Like, I'm such a Gemini, it's a problem. But like, my friends. Anyway, fine.
I mean, I identify with half of that, and that I really like connecting people with each other. And then when I see that the connection flourishes, it makes me so happy. Like, I don't even need any credit. I'm just like, I just know that I might have helped bring it about, and I'm just so happy about it. I love it.
Yeah.
Haley says, Drew's Instagram is wonderful. I just followed. Thank you, Haley.
Oh my gosh.
Haley,
What's your name?
Drew the dog. Drew the dog. DRU the dog. And then Haley, like the wolf, also said, me AF. I'm not tiny, but I'm not strong enough to say fight me as much as I do.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh, Drew's icon is super cute. I love it. Okay. Awesome. I'm here for it.
And then let's see here. Nikki says, I say fight me way too often for a disabled deaf chick who cannot defend himself.
Yeah. I feel that a lot, actually. Yeah.
And Haley like the wolf says, buddy, you're friends with my friends too. I brought Katie into the internet squad. That's right. You and Katie are like that. Yeah.
So I exclusively call Katie Burr. Because Aaron Burr and I am Alexandria Hamilton through and through.
You're Alexander Hamilton.
Okay, so listen. Stay tuned for my Halloween outfit. Good sir. Because that may come into fruition.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
Yeah, because Mr. Hamilton and I share a name. It's just been changed a little bit.
A little bit.
But yes, so yeah, I call Katie Burr and we say fight me to each other a lot for two people that would definitely not fight each other. But yes, relate to Alexander Hamilton a lot. So I get it.
Awesome. Oh gosh, 2 hours has flown by. How'd that happen?
I have no idea. Well, that's actually not true. I do know that because I'm particularly loquacious, so it makes sense.
Loquacious is an excellent word and it's never used enough.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's one of my favorites.
All right. Sorry, Haley. I can see your chat, but nobody else can. Haley said.
Good.
Haley said, "Fuck yes, Alexander Hamilton," and I've got moderation turned on, so I guess your fuck turned on the automatic blocking. Sorry about that.
Oh my god. Good. Block her, please. Yeah. The current plan is either. I mean, I hadn't even thought about Alexander Hamilton. I was going with Alexandria Hamilton. But yes, yeah, that is the current plan for Halloween.
That's so cool. That's so great.
I mean, how could you not with my name, honestly?
Yeah, I mean, with your name and your feels, it's perfect.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that soundtrack pretty well at this point, so I can make it work.
That's amazing. How about you and Burr do a little collab video together?
Okay, listen. So here's the thing. I texted Burr as soon as I figured out that was my costume, and Katie was like, okay, but we don't live near each other, so why would I dress up as Burr? It's not going to even make sense. I got so upset. I was like, in a very Alexander Hamilton way, I threw my desk and was so I don't get it. It's for the metaphor, like it's for the point, and she just didn't matter. So
I mean, hell, you could just put selfies up on the internet and then combine them.
That's what I'm saying. Completely.
Nikki Def Punk in the chat says, "I bet you can't guess what I'm going to be for Halloween." As I immediately think of Harley Quinn, I can't imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And Rachel says, "Allie, have you seen Hamilton's America yet?"
So I have it recorded, like the PBS documentary, I think is what they're referring to. I have it recorded from last night because Haley and I were podcasting while it was happening last night. So when I get home from work tonight, plan on live tweeting it. So excited.
Awesome. Oh, do you have a separate Twitter for your live tweeting, don't you?
I do. Yes, I do.
What is that Twitter?
It's at Allie Live Tweets. It's not on brand with my 23, but I didn't know how to fit it in there.
It's fine. Allie Live Tweets is great anyway.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nikki went to Twitter.
Nikki's calling me out right now.
Call you out.
Yikes.
Nikki on Twitter says, "Okay, listen," is what Allie has said like 400 times during Paul's live chats.
You're not wrong.
But that's great though. It's like a slightly gentler version of "fight me," but also pay attention.
I say okay, listen way too much for somebody that is already talking. Talking loudly. Like there's no way that somebody could already be ignoring me. Yeah. Okay, listen is definitely my version of fight me that I say way too much.
That's
Thank you for calling me out on it.
And then in the chat, Nikki says, "It's not a bad thing. I love it."
I'm pretty sure that I said it during my VidCon panels as well, and then listening back. Oh, shit. I did this in a professional setting. Okay, cool.
It's fine though. I mean, I find that professionalism in things like VidCon panel moderation isn't so much in the vernacular that you use, but so much as the plans that you have, the agenda that you have, and that you're able to carry them out to fruition. That's what shows professionalism to me. If you're using like colloquialisms, that's cool. That just makes you more relatable.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I would say I'm #relatable, but I would say that the emoji of the gray person with their face sideways and just like the words coming out is I'm just always talking. Like you can't shut up to save my life. So yeah.
I think that you talk a great amount, and that's why I've been glad to have you here on my live show. This has been fantastic.
I'm glad that we did this. This is a good idea.
This was so fun. But I do need to wrap up because I am starting to get really hungry.
that's fair. I also have to get ready to go to work, so it's a good plan.
Oh, that's important too. Thank you so much for joining me. Do you have a standard way that you wrap up your videos?
I usually just say bye. But I would just say that if somebody lasted this long, thanks, because that's awesome. But I'm just happy to be here. I think that the last time that we were on a live show together was right after my car wreck last year. So I'm glad that we've ended this on a better note. So that's pretty awesome.
Yes, this is a far better situation than that.
Yep. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So just thank you for being here. It's pretty awesome. And I'm glad that I was here.
Me too. And I'm looking forward to all your things, all the podcasts, your costumes. This is fantastic. This is great. So much to look forward to.
Forever doing all the things.
To everybody who has joined us in the chats, asking questions, paying attention, following along, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. At the end of all of my videos, I always say, tomorrow will be even better. Thanks, everybody.
Yay. Bye.